Welcome to Narayana IAS Academy. My name is Shubham Sagar, and in today's daily news analysis, we'll be taking 5 articles of Hindu and Indian Express from 30th July 2024. If we talk about the first article of the day, which is on Indian Express, page number 7, tax concessions on political donation. Here we'll be talking about one of the biggest issues plaguing India, that is transparency or rather opaqueness in political funding. If we talk about the second article of the day, which is on Indian Express page number 15, debate over COVID deaths. So here there are different journals, WHO data, which is saying that there is discrepancy in the number of COVID deaths which happen in India. And here we'll be talking about different mortality terms. What is infant mortality rate, maternal mortality rate, crude death rate, neonatal mortality rate? We should be knowing about these mortality rates because UPSC has already asked question on these particular terms rather. If we talk about the third article of the day, which is on Hindu page number 12, here we'll be talking about Indian government issues with ILO and what is happening here, why India is unhappy about the India employment report published by ILO. If we talk about the fourth article of the day, which is on Hindu page number 13, here biosimilar cancer drugs, they are in news. We'll be talking about these terms. What is biosimilar, how it is different from generic medicine and different other terms. So these terms are actually important from science and tech perspective, important from UPSC pre-perspective. If we talk about the last article of the day, which is on Indian Express page number 9, here we'll be talking about a very pertinent issue called reservation. So Bihar government, they have brought certain quota, 65% quota, and Patna High Court has stayed that particular quota. And Supreme Court has given certain verdicts on it. And via this particular case, we'll try to review various Supreme Court judgments related to reservation. After we are done with these 5 articles, we'll be solving 5 prelims practice question and 1 mains practice question. Because as we keep on saying, practice makes a man as well as a woman perfect. If we talk about the first article of the day, tax concession on political donations. So again, there will be some facts given here in this particular article. But more than the facts, we'll talk about one of the biggest issues plaguing India, and that is transparency or opaqueness in political funding. I'm not saying it, second ARC used to say it. There is a report in second ARC called as Ethics in Governance, and they have talked about something known as collusive corruption, coercive corruption. So corruption has many facets, many dimensions. There are 2 major forms of corruption, coercive corruption and collusive corruption. So coercive corruption means when somebody is forcing you to, like, you have to bribe, otherwise the work will not be done. Collusive corruption means when both of you are getting benefit out of the act which you are doing, right? So according to, like, let's take an example. Let's say you're an IAS officer, you're a corrupt IAS officer, somebody is giving you something for and they are telling you that we'll give the, we'll ensure that your son is getting admitted to a particular school or something, and you have to do something in return. So this is a kind of collusive corruption. And coercive corruption means you have no option, you have to pay the bribe. So according to second ARC, Ethics in Governance report, after 1991 LPG reforms, this coercive corruption has reduced and collusive corruption has increased. Hope you're understanding this. And some political experts even say that this political donation, let's say a particular company, any company is donating to a particular political party per se, they will be expecting something in return, quid pro quo. And this company donation, this political donation to a certain extent promotes, coercive corruption rather decreased after 1991 and collusive increased. So this company donation, political donation to a certain extent promote collusive corruption. So that's why we should be knowing about this political funding, transparency in political funding. What are different committees saying about this? Dinesh Goswami committee, Indrajit Gupta committee, second ARC Ethics and Governance. What is the solution for this? So previous year question has been asked, Election Commission of India has proposed electoral reforms. So there's so many issues plaguing our elections. Politicization of criminals or criminalization of politics. Similarly, political funding, or rather opaqueness in political funding, is a very pertinent issue which we are talking about here. So the context of this particular article is tax deduction for donation. You are an individual, you are a company, you will be paying to a political party, so there will be certain amount of deduction you will be getting under Income Tax Act. So this figure, like the figure which you are seeing here, which is approximately 4,000 crore. It is 13% increase from the fiscal year 2021-22. And this is actually a big figure. And even if tax deduction is happening, so who is losing? Government is losing, we are losing, because we are paying tax to the government, right? So there are certain issues involved here as well. More about the news: tax deductions are available under Income Tax Act 1961. And now sometimes what you have to do is you have to remember the core year. Like there will be some amendments. Income Tax Act 1961, Right to Information Act, Right to Education Act, Right to Information Act, let's say 2005 if I'm not wrong, Right to Education Act 2009. So try to remember the core year. Sometimes they can give you to arrange them in chronological order when they were originally passed. So here cash donations are not eligible for these income tax deduction. And then there are certain figures, certain data which is given here. 2022-23 corporate, they got tax deduction more than 2000 crore, and overall it was approximately 4000 crore, and you can compare the data for previous years. Right. Now the major issue, political funding in India. What are the sources? Individual donation, you can pay to a particular political party. Party membership fees, like there is a BJP, there is Congress, there are different members there, they can pay, they can contribute. Corporate donations, big corporate, and this is a major issue. These corporate donations, if they are paying in crores to a political party, again I'm reiterating it, they will be expecting something in return. This is known as quid pro quo. Nobody does like anything out of charity. Nothing is charity here, especially when it comes to like political funding, not only in India, worldwide as well. So party membership fees, Representation of People Act, these are the legal frameworks which is guiding to a certain extent political funding in India, but issue persist. Right? What is the solution? Also, we'll talk about it. So, registration and function of political parties, Income Tax Act 1961, exemptions. We're talking about the tax deductions. Exemptions are provided under Section 80 GGB and 80 GGC. So, one will be dealing with company donation, other will be dealing with individuals and other donations. Again, you don't need to remember each and every sections, but you have to understand the core of issue, like which is happening inside political funding. What is collusive corruption? What is coercive corruption? What is second ARC saying about it? What is second ARC recommendation on how we can address the opaqueness in political funding in India? Companies Act 2013 allows company to donate up to 7.5% of their average net profit. Electoral bond scheme was introduced in 2018. It has been discontinued now by Supreme Court. It was deemed unconstitutional if I'm not wrong. But it was facilitating anonymous donation as well. Nobody was knowing except for, let's say, SBI, which were issuing the electoral bonds, that who was being or who was purchasing electoral bonds, and the bonds were being purchased at very higher prices as well. So transparency and accountability issues related to political funding. Anonymity, who is buying these electoral bonds, more or less they remain anonymous, and even some political experts were saying that only the ruling party can know who has given or who has purchased electoral bond of what amount. So that is also not very good. So inadequate disclosure requirements, regulatory gaps, and then this one, influence of big donors. Again, we are reiterating it. If somebody is paying you 10 crores or 100 crores or 1000 crores as political, like company donation, political funding, they will be expecting something in return. And no political party is immune. Like you cannot say that this particular party is benefiting most from it. Yes, ruling party does benefit a lot out of it, but somewhere or the other, every political party has enjoyed this opaqueness in political funding to a certain extent, and they have more or less similar kind of stance. And that's why political will is necessary. Some amount of pressure groups formation is necessary if you want to see reforms in political funding. So, conclusion. Again, we're talking about opaqueness in political funding, company donation. What are the demerits associated with company donation? So, what is the solution? Different committees have been formed. Dinesh Goswami Committee, Indrajit Gupta Committee, Second ARC Ethics and Governance Report, they have given recommendation. Then Ashwai Qureshi, he was former CEC, Chief Election Commissioner. He was saying that we can do something known as centralized pooling of resources. So let's say I paid 100 rupees to a political party, you paid 1000 rupees. So instead of giving to a specific political party, it will go to a pool, and there will be accumulation of money based on how many seats they are winning or how much percentage of votes they are getting in a particular election. The amount will be given to them. Let's say they got 38% vote, so 38% money of that centralized pool will be given to that political party. That was given by SY Qureshi. The issue here is, let's say I gave 100 rupees to BJP, and my money is going to some other political party. I may not like it. I may feel like, no, I don't want to be a part of this pool. I want to give to a political party, specific political party. I don't know if the money is going to a pool, whom that money will be going to, which particular political party that money will be going to. Hope you're understanding it. Then there is like government funding of election. But again, India is a big country. The election cost is very high. So different reports are saying that partial funding can be done, partial funding in kind can be done. So all these measures have been proposed, but a concrete step has yet to be taken, and we as public, like, we have to keep on, like, what do you say, updating ourselves about this particular issue, because this is a very pertinent issue, this is a very core issue, this is one of the major issues which is leading to different kinds of corruption in India. So hope you're understanding this issue of opaqueness in political funding to a certain extent. If we talk about the second article of the day, and this is an article which is not very new, like, we have an idea. These kind of debates keep on happening where certain agencies or publications, journals, WHO, they keep on saying that the amount of deaths which happen in different country, the figure which was given by a particular country was not exactly correct. Same is happening with India. And there is a different journal, they are saying that India underestimated the number, or like there is a debate over the COVID deaths. WHO has said the same. So again, these deaths, is UPSC going to ask you the actual number of deaths which happened during COVID? No. What are they going to ask? There are different mortality terms here, like crude death rate. Then when we are reading about crude death rate, so that gives us an excuse to read about other terms related to mortality, like infant mortality rate, maternal mortality rate, neonatal mortality rate. We should be knowing about these terms apart from the context of this particular article. So questions related to global hunger index, health, etc., because this is an issue related to GS paper 2 health. So these kind of questions have been asked by UPSC earlier in prelims as well as mains. So what is the context here? A paper in Science Advances, they estimated 11.9 lakh excess deaths. Now what is excess death? So let's say Indian government said, I'm just giving you a figure, don't take this figure as the correct figure. Let's say Indian government said 5 lakh people died. So according to Science Advances, no, 16.9 lakh people died. And this excess death is 11.9 lakh. That is what they are saying. Again, don't take 5 lakh as the correct figure. I'm just giving you an example here. And Indian government is again criticizing it. In the later part of the articles also, we'll also talk about that how Indian government is also not very happy with ILO report on employment. So these kind of things happen, and you can understand the frustration of our government as well. So more about the news. Official figure is 1.49 lakh deaths in 2020. About 5.33 lakhs overall. COVID deaths we are talking about. And different studies suggest that no, deaths could be 5 to 10 times higher, even when we were encountering that horrible period, which was horrible for like most of us in more ways than one. So we were also saying that, okay, whatever figure has been given, and some people among us were also saying that the figure is not exactly correct, and these kind of things or these kind of reports are substantiating that fact, right? So we are not saying this is correct, we are just saying that these kind of apprehensions is not in the mind of only one or two people, that was in the mind of many people as well. So WHO estimated 47 lakh excess deaths in India for 2020-21, which the government contested. So now WHO is saying that no, 1.49 lakh deaths, no, it is around 48 lakh deaths which happened, which is actually a very big number. So excess mortality is the difference between expected and actual deaths. So hope you can understand, this is not a discrepancy of 1 lakh or 2 lakh. The discrepancy is very high according to WHO. The discrepancy is very high according to the journal as well, which has given certain data related to the deaths. Now, this was the factual part, which more or less UPSC doesn't ask, but UPSC has asked earlier these kind of terms, like what is crude death rate, and more than crude death rate, IMR, MMR, NMR, which we should be knowing about these terms. And then I will tell you something to do. If you know these facts, I will ask you some questions. You can post your answer in the comment section. And one thing which I keep on telling you, that we'll be doing 5 prelims question at the end, and your work is to tell us, because you have to be disciplined regarding all these daily news analysis. So you have to tell us out of those 5 questions how many you are getting correct. So crude death rate, out of 1,000 people, how many people are dying? That is crude death rate in simple terms. Now focus here. Focus on infant mortality rate and neonatal mortality rate. So this is first, this is second, this is third and fourth. So second and fourth you will be reading in parallel. Just like we say in polity, na? When you're reading president, read governor. When you're reading parliament, read state legislature. Study in parallel. Similarly, when you're reading infant mortality rate, you will be reading neonatal mortality rate at the same time. So what is this? Infant mortality rate, number of deaths of infants under 1 year of age per 1,000 live births. So 1,000 childs are getting born. How many are dying within 1 year? That is infant mortality. And what is neonatal mortality? 1,000 babies are like taking birth, and how many are dying within the first 28 days. So the issue or the difference between IMR and NMR is the day or the duration period. In IMR, the duration is 1 year, under 1 year, and in neonatal, within or first 28 days. Hope you're understanding this. You have to segregate them. The homework for you is, Although you will find it difficult to find the exact answer of what I'm going to ask you, you have to find out the current IMR of India. What is the current infant mortality rate of India? So let's say it is 31 or 17. So that means I'm just giving you a what do you say, fictitious figure. So let's say if it is 17, that means if 1,000 babies are taking birth, 17 are dying within 1 year. If neonatal mortality rate is let's say 8 or 10, so that means if 1,000 live births are taking place in a then within 28 days, 8 or 10 kids are dying. So that is the figure, and you have to get the correct figure of IMR. Now, let's come to maternal mortality rate. So per 1 lakh live births, 1 lakh babies are getting birth, how many mothers are dying? And here we are talking about like when they are giving birth, how many mothers are dying? 1 lakh live births. So again, the number here is 1 lakh live births. Please understand this. And there is another thing, within 42 days of termination of pregnancy also, how many mothers are dying? So this is here, the reference frame is 1 lakh live births. So please understand, in a given year we are talking about. So maternal mortality rate has a reference frame of 1 lakh live births, whereas IMR and NMR, they have a reference frame of 1,000 live births. So keep these points in mind apart from the duration as well. So what is the conclusion? We need to find out the exact number of deaths which happened because of COVID-19, because that is crucial for health, demographic, economic as well as policy implications. And the postponed 2021 census, potentially which will be happening in 2026, could provide the most accurate data on COVID-19 deaths to a comprehensive head count. And we are like eagerly waiting for this 2021 census, right? If we talk about the third article of the day, Indian government is not very happy with ILO report. So in the previous article only, we have talked about that. We are going to talk about this. So ILO, International Labour Organization, they have published an India employment report where they have not posted or pasted a very hunky-dory picture about our Indian economy, and they have stressed a lot on the unemployment part, and we are not liking it. Indian government is not liking it, and that is but obvious, right? So previous question, International Labour Organization Convention 138 and 182 are related to. So ILO, questions on ILO has been framed by or have been framed by like UPSC. So we should be knowing about ILO. So again, there will be some facts and figures, and there will be a report, and we keep on talking about these reports are important. Global economic outlook, global economic prospect, world economic outlook, and all these different kind of reports. Earlier also we have talked about World Bank, other organizations who are releasing it. Similarly here also, India employment report, keep a tab on it, that who published it? ILO, and India is not very happy about it. Union Labour Ministry claims that ILO's model which they used to assess the employment situation in India is not very suitable for the country, and we have our own assessment. So what are the report findings? So they are saying, ILO report is saying that youth unemployment, if we talk about youth unemployment, India's youth account for almost 83% of the unemployed workforce. So youth population, if there are 100 unemployed people, youth is comprising 83 of them. That is actually a very huge chunk. Education and unemployment, the share of unemployed youth with secondary or higher education, like who have done 12th till 12th or who have done graduation. So they are like almost 66% or 2/3 of the unemployed people. They are the people who have done 12th or who have a degree, who have done graduation. Again, not a very good picture about our employment scenario. So now this is some factual information, and from this particular factual information, what we have to understand, again, I have noted or I have pointed out the key areas. India Employment Report, who publishes it. Now we have to go to the core part of this article. We have to take out the keywords of this article. One keyword is ILO, International Labour Organization. When was it formed? Is it a part of UN? Was India a founding member of ILO? These are the kind of questions which we should be knowing about, right? So International Labour Organization is a specialized agency of UN, one of the oldest agencies of UN, formed in 1990 as part of Treaty of Versailles. So here, this particular article, different areas are merging. Like when we are talking about ILO, international relations, then international organization here, and then world history, because Treaty of Versailles, which was very much responsible for the Second World War also, because when you keep on reading world history, you hear about Treaty of Versailles, how humiliating it was for Germany, and how it paved way for the rise of leaders like Hitler. So Treaty of Versailles, world history, international relation, all these things, economy is merging here. So again, ILO, what are the goals? Fair working condition, like labor welfare. They focus a lot on that. And different conventions of ILO, like there are 8 different conventions. India has signed 6 of them. We'll see that. So they focus like so much on labor welfare, which is actually a very pertinent issue, and fostering peace through social justice. So ILO is unique among UN agencies due to its tripartite structure. Now this is also important. Tripartite structure. 3 parties are involved. What are these 3 parties? First is government, Second is employers. Third is workers. So understand, they can even ask you which of the organs of UN is known for its tripartite structure. So tripartite structure, ILO. Fine. Mandate and objectives, like decent work for all, promoting rights at work, encouraging decent employment opportunity. So there was a bill which was passed in a certain state. We'll not talk about the state where they were telling to work for more than 10 plus hours or 12 plus hours. So that is, maybe ILO will not like it because it is promoting decent work for all. It is promoting decent employment opportunity. How much decent that employment opportunity is when you are getting like burnt out in work, right? Enhancing social protection, strengthening dialogue on work related issues. So Indian ILO, is India a founding member of UN or ILO rather? We are talking about it. The answer is yes. India is a founding member of ILO and India has been a permanent member of ILO governing body since 1922. So please understand these keywords. When was ILO formed? Is it an organ of UN? Yes. Was India a founding member? Yes. Then which treaty was associated with ILO? Treaty of Versailles. So all these things are important from exam perspective. Then different conventions which focus a lot on labor welfare. So there are 8 conventions out of which India has ratified 6. So these are the 6 which India has ratified. And on 138 and 182 already we have seen a PYQ which was asked. So we should be knowing about these 8 conventions: forced labor convention, abolition of forced labor, equal remuneration, discrimination. Then there are 2 conventions which India has not signed. Conventions on freedom of association and right to organize and collective bargaining, where India has issues related to the meaning associated of this convention, and according to India, that there are certain restrictions on government's employees' right to strike and organize in these 2 conventions, and that's why we have abstained from ratifying these 2 conventions. So please bear in mind these 2 conventions: freedom of association 87 and right to organize and collective bargaining. If we talk about the 4th article of the day, this is a very interesting article because there are certain terms. Again, we should be aware about terms like biosimilar, then generic medicine, biologics. What are these words? What does it mean? What is biosimilar? How it is different from generic medicine? Then there are, like, when you talk about generic medicine, you keep on talking about, or you may have heard about TRIPS, trade related aspects of intellectual property rights. Then there are developed countries which have companies like Novartis. So they make a genuine drug. They have done lots of R&D on it. They have invested a lot of money on it. And then developing country like India produces a generic version of it at a very cheaper price. So companies like Novartis, they are crying fall that we have invested so much money on our biologics, biosimilars, and India is producing generic version of it, and we are losing out so much money because cancer drugs are very expensive and we are producing the cheaper version of it via generic medicine. And India has a response to it that all these things which we are doing is TRIPS compliant, trade related aspects of intellectual property rights, and we are a very poor country. We need these medicines to save our vulnerable population who are suffering from cancer. Along with that, we also need these medicines to sell to poorer African countries. So again, these kind of issues, they keep on happening between India and America and Indian and American companies like Novartis. So that's why we should be knowing about these words. What is biosimilar? What is biologics? So previous year questions on these kind of, like, vaccines and everything has been asked earlier, like as we are saying, previous year questions. So now what is the context here? Dr. Reddy's lab. Again, you don't need to remember Dr. Reddy's lab, but they announced its biosimilar of Roche's cancer drug, which is bevacizumab. Again, if I'm pronouncing it wrong, pardon me, like my phonetic friends who are very sincere about the phonetics part. Again, the point here is, what we have to understand is, what is biosimilar, what is biologic, what is generic medicine. These are the 3 keywords. Apart from that, you can forget about Dr. Reddy, you can forget about Roche's here. That is not important, but what we are going to read now is very important. Like, what is biosimilar? Biologic, when, let's take the example of Novartis. It's a very famous drug or pharmaceutical company. What you have to understand is, when a medicine is being made, their raw materials is known as API, active pharmaceutical ingredient, and the country which is a pioneer of having API is China. Most of the countries who are making even new version of drugs, or let's say biologics, so they have to buy API from China, and then different permutation and combination of these APIs are done to create new drugs. And if the creation of these new drugs involves some cells, nucleic acid or proteins, biological organisms we're talking about, that is biologic, when you have created something from scratch, or you have created different permutation, combination. So you have a biologic similar, like using this biologic, you have created some similar medicines, right? So, and that also involved biological organism, that is biosimilar. And then the third part comes, that is generic medicine, which is the cheapest version out of these all. Like biologic will be very expensive, biosimilar will be somewhat cheaper than biologics, and generic medicine will be the cheapest version because it may, in most cases, it does not even involve the biological organisms. It is created using chemical process, but more or less the API active pharmaceutical ingredients are very same, or very, like they are very similar to each biologics as well, but they are produced in a different way. Hope you're understanding this. Biologic, if you can say, maximum amount of R&D is involved in biologic. Then comes biosimilar, and at the last is generic. So biosimilar, even if you have to read it, read like this: biologics first, biosimilar second, and then generic third. So biologic, original biologic products derived from living cells. That's why it is called biologics. Biosimilar, highly similar to an already approved biologic. And what is generic? Identical copies of the small molecule drugs, that is biologics and biosimilar. Then produced using living cells, both biologics and biosimilar. On the other hand, generics are produced chemically. Size and complexity, large, large, small. Again, you don't need to understand each and every feature, but you have to understand here. If we talk about originality concept, biologics will come first, then biosimilar, and then generics will be at the third. Regulatory approval requires extensive, again here, require full clinical trials and data. Maximum number of R&D work will be done in biologics. Then biosimilar. And here in generics require proof of bioequivalence. Again, even if you forget this, just remember the hierarchy here: biologics, biosimilar, and generics. Cost, which will be more expensive or most expensive? Biologics, because so much R&D and production cost is involved. Then comes biosimilar, and the cheapest will be generics. Variability, again natural variability inherent in production, don't worry about it. Patent exclusivity, maximum amount of protection. Patent will be given to whom? This one, biologics, patented with market exclusivity. Then comes biosimilar, enter market after reference biologic patents expire, and then enter market after original drugs patent expire. Now one thing I will tell you, this is an homework for you. This is in our video channel only, Narayana IAS Academy live. If you want to understand the difference between what is patent, like what does trademark means, what does geographical indication means, difference between these terms, patent, copyright, trademark, biological indication, you can watch our video which is there on the live part of the Narayana IAS Academy channel. So that will give you more idea about what we are talking about here. Cut this part. So biosimilar, biologics, generics, you'll not be reading it in this manner. You'll be reading biologics first, then biosimilar, and then generics. Even if you have understood certain aspects of what is biologics, what is biosimilar, what is generic, the work is done here. Most original biologics, then biosimilar, and least original or most copied is generic. If we talk about the last article of the day, reservation, a very sensitive issue. So what is the context of this article? Nitish Kumar government, they proposed 65% quota for backward classes. Patna High Court, they stayed the verdict. Then people went to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court is like, no, we will not stay Patna High Court verdict, but we will hear out the whole issue. So that is the crux of this particular article. But via this article, we'll try to understand different Supreme Court judgments on reservation in India. That will give us a whole picture. What is this 50% cap? When does the concept of creamy layer came into existence, right? So all these words, all these Supreme Court judgments becomes important from exam perspective. You can even cite them out. Most of the people will keep on talking about reservation, how it is good, how it is bad, etc. When you substantiate your argument with Supreme Court judgments, your answer gets a lot of weight. So hope you're understanding what we are trying to discuss here. So reservation of seats for women in the institution of local self-government. So reservation, questions on reservations have been asked mostly in mains, but also in pre as well. So we should be knowing about reservation. We should be knowing about right to equality, exceptions under right to equality. Reservation is also known as positive affirmation. What it is known as? Positive affirmation. So sometimes they will not write the word reservation, they will write positive affirmation. So recently Supreme Court has refused to stay the Patna High Court's order that overturned the Bihar government's decision to raise the reservation quota. For backward classes, we have talked about the context. So more about the news. 2023, Nitish Kumar led Mahagathbandhan rather issued a notification, and they said that we want to raise the quota in government jobs and educational institutions for backward classes from 50 to 65%. But again, more or less 50% cap. From which judgment it came, we'll talk about it. Because what about the general category students? If we keep on increasing the reservation criteria, sometimes people even say that reservations undermine merit system. So we can debate on that. So 50% cap has been taken as a standard in various Supreme Court judgments. We'll talk about it. So Patna High Court set aside the Bihar government's notification stating that the increased quota infringed upon the right to equality guaranteed under the Constitution 14 to 18, if I'm not wrong. So court emphasizes Supreme Court's 50% cap on reservation, so that you have 50% reservation and then you can elect the other 50% people on the basis of merit. Here we are talking about, right? So the Supreme Court refused to stay the Patna High Court's order but agreed to hear the petition. They're hearing the petition and they will try to understand the pros and cons of different parties here. They're not saying that will not even entertain the petition. They will entertain the petition, Supreme Court here we're talking about, but they're not like staying the Patna High Court's order. So evolution of major case judgments on the issue of reservation in India. This is an important part for us. We have to understand the genesis. Like when you're reading even fundamental rights, you can just Google it out or you can read about different Supreme Court judgments on fundamental rights. If you are reading about right to shelter, I have covered right to shelter in my previous DNA videos. What are the different Supreme Court judgments on right to shelter? That's how you understand things in a better manner and you get a clear-cut picture. So 1951 State of Madras versus Champakam Dorai Rajan, very famous case where they were saying that Supreme Court ruled that reservation based solely on caste. Caste should not be the only criteria. Like EWS, economically weaker section. Many people were saying that when we are giving reservation on the basis of economic criteria is very transient in nature. What does it mean is, let's say today I am very poor. 10 days or 1 year after maybe I am very rich. So economy can or may not be a good criteria. That's what people were arguing about. But socially, there are certain categories of people, SC, STs, backward classes, who have been socially marginalized for so many years, thousands of years, hundreds of years. So that can be a criteria. So that's what Supreme Court was saying, that caste cannot be the only criteria and you have to include other provisions as well. So this led to the first amendment of the Constitution, adding Article 15, Clause 4 to allow special provision for the advancement of socially and educationally backward classes. You're socially backward and educationally backward as well. M.R. Balaji versus State of Mysore. Mysore government's order reserving 68% of the seats. So what you're seeing in Patna or Bihar, 65% reservation struck down. Similar kind of cases you will see here in or witness in different states as well. So it was happening in Mysore. Supreme Court ruled that no, reservation should be reasonable and not exceed 50%, because then, according to different scholars, it undermines merit system. It emphasized that caste could be a criterion but not the sole basis. Again, what Champakam Dorai Rajan case was saying, caste should not be the only criterion for determining reservation or positive affirmation. Indra Sahani and others versus Union of India. Very important case, you should be knowing about it, right? So the challenge, like this particular case, the case challenged the implementation of Mandal Commission report, which says that 27% reservation should happen for OBCs in central government jobs. Supreme Court upheld the 27% reservation, but they said that the cap should be 50%. And they introduced the concept of creamy layer within OBC. If you have or earning a certain income, above that you cannot claim the criteria or the benefits of reservation benefits of OBCs, right? So M. Nagaraj and others versus Union of India. Please understand this Indra Sahni case, 27% reservation for OBCs, but the caveat is the creamy layer concept. Sometimes they can even ask you this, which particular judgment introduced the concept of creamy layer? The answer will be Indra Sahni judgment. M. Nagaraj versus and others versus Union of India. Again, challenge amendments to Constitution that allowed reservation in promotions. So now this is a different condition altogether. Earlier we were talking about reservation. Now we are talking about promotions. So you have been given a seat, you have been given a job based on reservation. Now what about the promotion? Should there be reservation in promotions as well? So that was the case related to M. Nagaraj. The Supreme Court upheld the amendments but imposed conditions that state must demonstrate backwardness, inadequacy of representation and maintenance of administrative efficiencies. Then only you can award promotions of SC and ST. So let's say there is very less representation of SC and ST is a higher post. Then you can award promotions, then you can do reservation in promotions as well. So that was the case related to M. Nagaraj, or the issue related to M. Nagaraj case. Jarnail Singh versus Lakshmi Narayan Gupta case. Again, the case challenged the requirement to prove backwardness for SC, STs for reservation and promotion. Now we have moved on. Earlier we were talking about reservations. Now here we are mostly, in the previous case also, where we are talking about M. Nagaraj, and here also when we are talking about Jarnail Singh case, we are talking about promotion, reservation in promotions. Should it be given or not, and what should be the criteria if it is given? Supreme Court held that SC and STs need not prove backwardness to claim reservation, but whatever conditions were let down in M. Nagaraj, that there is not adequate representation, administrative efficiency is not being compromised. If all those conditions are being catered to, you can give reservation in promotions. Maratha quota case, again, we have seen the case like in Bihar, in Mysore, state of Mysore, here also Maharashtra, they were giving reservation to Maratha community, and Supreme Court struck down the law, reaffirming the 50% cap on reservation and emphasizing that extraordinary circumstances are needed to exceed this particular limit. So we have read about 5 articles of the day, right? Now the next task is to solve 5 prelims practice question and 1 mains question, and I keep on telling you that whatever questions you're getting correct, post in the comment section that you've got 0 out of 5, 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5, whatever you're getting correct. Please post in the comment section. That will be beneficial for you in the long run. So again, there is a question related to correction. Again, we have talked about issue of reservation. That was the last article if I'm not wrong. And different judgments were there. Which of these following statement is correct? Supreme Court in Indira Sahni and others versus Union of India upheld a 27% reservation for OBC but reaffirmed that total reservation should not exceed 50%. So this is correct. We have talked about Indira Sahni case, how important it is. So this is correct, and here the options are framed in such a way that you cannot have any other option. Only one can be correct. So A is the answer. You do not even need to look at B, C, D, but you can have a look at these 3 options as well. The answer is A. If we talk about the second question, what conditions did the Supreme Court impose on states for implementing reservation in promotion? So earlier we were talking about, in the initial judgments, we were talking about reservation. Then we moved on to reservation in promotions for SC and STs, and we're talking about different cases. Demonstrating backwardness, showing inadequacy of representation, maintaining administrative efficiency, all of the above. The answer is all of the above. We have talked about this. D. Third question. India has not ratified which of the following ILO conventions? We have talked about 8 conventions. India has signed or ratified 6. India has not ratified 2, and one of the 2 is Freedom of Association and Protection of Rights to Organize Convention. Go and revise that article. So the questions are little tricky. Even if you're getting 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5, you should be proud to post that in the comment section. Do post. With reference to biosimilar and biologics, consider the following differences. Biosimilars are produced using living cells while biologics are chemically synthesized. Wrong. Chemically synthesized, we talk about generics. While both are produced using living cells. Biologics are less expensive than biosimilars. No, they are more expensive because more amount of R&D is involved. Both biosimilars and biologics, second is also wrong. So both biosimilars and biologics enter the market after the original drug patents expires. No, that is not correct. Biologics enter first and then biosimilars. So third is also wrong. The answer is D, none. You can go and read the differences between biologics, biosimilar and generics. Last question. Various mortality rate. You have to choose which of the above statements are correct. So you can pause the video whenever you're seeing the question, and you can unpause and listen to the explanation. Crude death rate, number of deaths per 1,000 live births. No, number of deaths per 1,000 people. So first is wrong, just eliminate. First you're left with 2 and 3, 3 and 4. So you don't even need to check for 3 because 3 is there in both the options, sorry. So third has to be there. Just check for second and fourth. Infant mortality rate, number of deaths of infants under 1 year of age per 1,000 live births. So second is correct. So the answer is B, 2 and 3. Always try for option elimination. Fourth is wrong because we are talking about 100 live births. Here the word is 1,000 live births, not 100. Now mains practice question. Analyze the current legal framework and transparency issues related to political funding in India. Also suggest measures to enhance transparency and accountability in political funding. Then you can talk about what are the legal frameworks guiding political funding, Income Tax Act, Representation of Peoples Act, different scenarios like we have talked about legal framework. Transparency issues, then we can talk about what is happening because of big company donation, opaqueness, electoral bond scheme, anonymity, how these are creating issues, how opaqueness of political funding is promoting collusive corruption in India according to second ARC Ethics and Governance report. So all these things you can talk about here. Current legal framework, income tax, RPA, Companies Act, electoral bond scheme, which has been scrapped down by Supreme Court. Sources of political funding, individual, corporate donation, party membership fees, we have talked about it. And this was the first article if I'm not wrong. Transparency and accountability issues, challenges. What were the challenges related to anonymity, related to company donation, all these things. Collusive corruption, do mention second ARC Ethics and Governance report. Then measures to enhance transparency and accountability, strict disclosure norms, public reporting of donations, and public pressure, political will. All these things are needed. Pressure groups formation, all these things are needed if you want to ensure transparency in political funding in India. Summarize the importance of transparency. It is very much important if you want to improve in corruption perception index. If you have any idea who publishes corruption perception index, you can post it in the comment section. Right? So that's it for today's DNA video. If you like the video, do like, share and subscribe, and please post your marks in the comment section. How many of the 5 prelims question you got correct? Take care, be blessed, see you soon.